Okay, so I've created a couple more different shapes for the characters, the browse up as well as the browse down. I'm going to grab each one and make a blend shape. And of course, in order to speed things along, I'm just hitting the G button. Then we can increase that, grab these two, raise them up. So you can see that both of them are making those shapes. Now I've over-exaggerated it a little bit just so you can see it better on the screen. So I can go to my paint attributes, and it's already set to erase, so I'm going to erase the one side. And a really good suggestion, especially if you've moved anything down the middle, is to do what's known as a smooth. So watch this. If I hit smooth and then I do a flood, see how this sort of branches over to the other side, but only a little bit? That can help to make a smooth transition, and it might make your blend shapes function a little bit easier. Okay, so now we can see both of these. Goes up and down. Okay, so I can see there's a little bit of motion on this one, so I can just continue to erase that. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing to these. The angry eyes. This is the right side, so I'll erase his left side. Oops, too much. So we'll smooth. There we go. We'll test that out. Okay, so again, we have a little bit of action on this side, so we'll just erase that completely. There we go. You can see there's just the tiniest little bit of action continuing, so we'll just make sure that that's completely erased. Okay, so we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then I think I did squint as well. So we have some of these controllers that we can start to build now, and of course the construction of the curve controllers are pretty simple, so we'll just grab our EP curve tool. I'll set it to linear, and then we're going to come over here, and what I'll do is I'll just select all the way around so that there is one grid point in the middle. I can move that over. Then I'm going to create a circle, snap to grid, throw that right in the middle, rotate that 90 degrees, shrink it so that it's just about that big, grab them both, freeze transforms, we can even delete the history on them. We take the circle and we simply parent it to that box or that square that we made. That way I can move this around, but as far as this object is concerned, even if I move it, this has gone nowhere. Okay? Now, inside of your little cheat sheet, you notice that it says what kind of controller we should be using. Every one of these little bordered edge is the blend shapes that exist inside of that particular controller. So we see that this is a C controller. So if we scroll down here towards the bottom, this is the type of controller that we're trying to make. This C controller gives us the ability to go up, down, left, and right. And you'll notice that some of these take a different direction. Some of them are limited. They can only go in one direction or another. This one can only go positive and negative, and so on. So this object is now sitting inside of this one, which is great, but the problem is I can move it way past. So what I'm going to do is go over to my limit information, go to my translates, and I'm going to say that it is not allowed to go any further than -1 to 1 in both the x and the y direction. Now, why am I not doing anything to z? Well, because that's z. I certainly don't need it to go in this direction at all. So I'm just going to highlight all of these, right-click, and say lock and hide. That way, this has two controls, the translate x and the translate y, and those are the only directions that we can move in. And notice that no matter how hard I try, we don't go any further than that position. Okay, so this is our first one. I can scale it to fit my needs, and that's entirely up to me. Just remember that no matter what you do to the outside of the box, this one is always still thinking that it hasn't moved at all. Okay, so we'll call this one open close CTL because it's a controller. Okay, and then I'll grab this, just slide it over a little bit. Looking at it from the front view can help. We'll duplicate it and slide that over because the next one also uses the C controller, and that's going to be smile and frown. So we'll grab that little controller and we'll call that smile frown control. Duplicate it again because the next one that we can make, the C controller, is the eyebrows, but I didn't do anything to those, so I'm not going to make a controller for that. Just be aware that however many different controllers you need, that's how many little controllers you're going to have to build. Always be sure to duplicate before you start setting up some of those final rules, like, let's see, just hold down X to snap to the grid. So all of the little controllers can be parented to that outside box, so I can move the box around, and then we know that all of it's part of the same group. Okay, now what I can also do is I can make some text. So I'll call this open closed, and then we can make smile frown. So I'll just hit apply, and then just shrink this down a little bit. So grab closed, put it underneath, grab frown, put it underneath. This can go here. Oops. Scale that just a little bit more so that it fits. There we go. Okay, so we've got smile frown, and now we have a title, and we have open close, and we have a title. Now all of these texts can also be parented right onto that controller. Usually what I do is just highlight each of the letters or each of the curves that make the letters and say lock. That way we don't accidentally move these out of the way when you don't want to. Okay, so now we'll do some more text. And we'll do browse. Up and down, and we'll just hit apply. Parent that to the curve and then lock all of that. So now we have browse control. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the process of making these particular controllers. The rest of these blend shapes would take the exact same steps. Okay, now we've already seen what a driver-driven key looks like. And we can use driver-driven to set up these controllers. If you're unfamiliar with creating, or if you're just sort of afraid to try to do this with Mel scripting, that's okay. You can certainly use the driver-driven key technique, but just be aware that doing that may cause issues down the road if you have to make changes. Okay, so in order to do the driver-driven technique, the first thing that you need to do is you need to open up your set-driven key options. So here's our little window, and the first thing that we need to make sure of is who is the driver and who is the driven. Now obviously this little object right here is not going to be the driven, so we're going to say load the driver. There it is up there, open, close. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to be able to select the actual BlendShape node. So you notice here this says character blends, and this is where all of those options are. Now if I have that object selected though, and I say load the driven, notice that those options are not listed. That's because this little piece of geometry doesn't technically have those blend shapes as part of its attributes, it's just connected. So what we can do is this. If we come over to our animation and go to our BlendShape window, here is where we can actually select our blend shape. So I'm just going to raise this up a little bit more. I'm just going to start to scroll all the way down until I'm at the bottom of this giant group, and notice here is the option called Select. Okay, so if I hit Select, now I really do have that selected. And if I come back to my set driven, I can say load the driven, and notice how all of my little controllers are now listed. Another way to do it, I'll just close this out, is to start inside of the BlendShape editor, and if we know that open is going to be the first one to do, we can select or right click inside of that value, and notice right here it says set driven key. So if I right click and do that, notice that it's already here at the bottom and open is already selected. So I can grab my open control and say load the driver. Okay, so either of those techniques works just fine. Okay, couple of things to think about at this point. When we go to move this controller back and forth and up and down, what is going to feel like the easiest motion if we're thinking about it in terms of opening up our jaw? Well, usually what I think of is I think of the jaw opening going down. So what I'm going to say is that this motion going down is open. So which direction out of the X or the Y are we dealing with? Well, it's in Y. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to say translate Y is open. Now, the value that we have right now inside of this is, of course, 0. This is where we want to start. This is our starting point, and I hit key. Okay, so now that I know that all of this is selected properly, we can see open has that value of 0, and it's red, which means it's keyed. I can also see it right there. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, grab my controller and move it down. Once I have my controller, the driver in its new position, I come back over to open and I change its value. So when it's down, as in -1, my open is all the way to 1. Now that I'm happy with that, I hit key. Now I can test this out by grabbing hold of that controller, coming over here, and just moving it up and down, and I can see that sure enough, moving that controller opens and closes the mouth. Okay, now we haven't gotten to close yet, but that's going to be the next step. So I select closed as my next controller. Okay, I hit key because it is back at its original position, and then I'm going to translate Y up. So come over to closed and then turn it all the way on. I have both in the second position that I want. I hit key again. Grab hold of it, and let's see, we've got open and close, and there it is. Now if I grab this and move it over here just to get a little closer to it, you can see that it works together. See that? So that means that when it's at 0, it's not activating either of these. And as I go up, it only activates closed. And when I go down, it only activates open. Because you cannot open and close your mouth at the same time. Those two actions can't be together. Okay? Now, the rest of the time, all you're going to be doing is that exact same thing over and over again. So we grab wide, and this time I'm going to say translate X. Now again, this all goes back to, the way that you think about things. If I can think about my mouth going wide, and that's a bigger shape, I can say that wide is going to be positive X. Okay? Just because it makes sense to me. So I have everything the way that I want it to. I hit key. I move my attribute all the way over, and I say wide is all the way up, and then hit key again. So now we can see that we have the wide working. Now I can grab narrow, have everything the way that I want it to, key, move it all the way to the end, turn narrow all the way up, and hit key again. Now I'm going to bring this little controller back over just so we can get close to it. And now you can see that I'm going wide and narrow at the same time, or as I'm making one motion, all the way from -1 until 0, narrow is working. Then as soon as I'm past the 0 mark and going in the positive direction, now wide takes over. Now here's the best part. All of these are now connected. All 4 of these are finished. That means that I can also both close and narrow my mouth. And now he's sort of puckering like he's going to give somebody a kiss. I can close and make my mouth go wide. I can I can make my mouth go narrow and yet go open. I can make my mouth go narrow and closed. I can also make my mouth go wide and open. So all of these different shapes are now working with just one controller. Okay? So that's how we would do it for all of these controllers if you wanted to do it like a driver-driven key. Now, if you don't want to do driver-driven, okay, if you would like to use the scripting method, that's perfectly fine too. The nice thing about scripting is that you can save all of your scripts as a text document, and that way, if anything goes wrong and you have to redo something, all of your scripts are right there for you. Okay? Now, I'm just going to break connection on each one of these, and I'm going to show you how I can turn, all 4 of these into a phrase using my script editor. Okay? Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at open, right click on it, and instead of going to set driven, I'm going to say create a new expression. So here is my expression editor, and here's the first part of my phrase. Character blends, and then the attribute is open. Of course, that's the one I'm looking for. I hit copy and paste. Then I'm going to say equals, and what it's going to equal is the open-close control. Okay, so here's my open-close control. I hit a period, and then translate, because that's what I need it to be doing. And then open, remember we were talking about going down. So we're going to say translate Y. Now, there's a problem with this though, isn't there? Because if I kept it just like this, and I'll just hit create so you can see what happens. And we have it purple, that's great. But problem is as I start to go down, this isn't the direction that open's supposed to be doing. This is actually all wrong, because open is now looking for the number to be the same. See how this is, as I'm translating it up, I'm at 538, and this says 538. That's because my expression simply says my translate is the number that your BlendShape gets. But I can't do that. What I need to do is actually say times -1. Now watch what happens, okay? I'm just adding things along so you can see what's going on. If I say that number times -1 and hit edit, then as I go from 0 to -1, -1 moving down now really does do open. That's great. But there's still a problem, because watch what happens once I pass 0. Now my blend shape is also a negative number. So there's just a couple of things that we need to do. First, I need to put my open close inside of a parenthesis, and then the negative can be on the outside. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the word clamp on the outside of this phrase. Clamp is just like when we were doing the paint attributes. Remember, clamping says you cannot go beyond these values. So what we're going to talk about here is the smallest number first, -1, comma, to 0, comma, and then open close control. Okay? Now, this seems to be a little bit more complicated, and at first it kind of is. But here's the best part. These phrases I can save and I can repeat them. So that means that all of the phrases that are going to be similar, kind of like how I was renaming all of my blend shapes just by copying and pasting little bits and pieces of the phrases, that's how I'm going to be able to make a bunch of these little phrases over and over and over again, just changing the little attribute that I need. So I hit Edit, and now what we have is no change whatsoever until it reaches a negative number. See that? So when it reaches 0, it knows that nothing is supposed to happen. So the next thing I can do is I'll go by script name, because here's that first expression that I just created, and I can call this character blends. Okay, so now I have, but based on filter, I can say go by expression name, and now I can start adding to this list. So this is character blends open. I can take this entire phrase, and notice that I put a semicolon at the end. That's going to be really important. Now, is the next one that we're making open? No, the next one we're making is closed. Now just be sure that that's actually the name of that blend shape. Okay? Closed, C-L-O-S-E-D, with a capital C. That's important. But now we have closed, and we don't need any of these extra settings. All we need to do, we're not multiplying it by a negative number this time, but we are setting a clamp. Now remember, this time what we're doing is we're going from 0 to 1. Okay? So the smallest number goes first, so that's going to be 0. The bigger number is going to be 1. Okay? All right, and then hit Edit. And if all goes well, then this will turn purple, which is great. And now as I start to raise it up, you can see that that works. But as soon as I go past that 0, open takes over. All right, so the next one I want is wide. So watch this. Wide is a positive, so that one works just fine for me. This is going to be called wide. And instead of translate Y, we translate X. Notice that all the rest of it, because it was pretty much the same thing, already typed out for me. I can hit Edit. Sure enough, there it is. Now I can take the negative one, because I want narrow to be in the negative X, right? So I can come over here, hit Enter. It's the negative. Only difference is I want it negative X, not negative Y. And then instead of open, I want narrow. And hit Enter. And sure enough, it turned purple again. So here we are again. So it's got all of the same controls. The only difference is, because this is all part of a text, I can select all of these and hit Control-C to copy, grab my little notepad, and paste it in. Now I can go to File, Save As, and I can save all of these things as a text. Okay? Now, to do the rest of them, it's just simply continuing on. Now normally what I do is I leave a blank a little blank space, just like I was leaving blank spaces inside of the groups right here. That way I can keep track of which ones I've done, and if I ever need to come back here, of course this is going to eventually have a a scroll on the side once I get long enough. These 4 I can tell are part of a group, and then the next set will be part of a group, and so on. Okay, so left smile, left frown, right frown. Let's do these. So what I'll do is we'll tuck this controller over here. And let's talk a little bit first about the smile and the frown. Now, inside of this one it was pretty easy because open and close was just up and down, right? Because you can either open or you can close your mouth. Well, this is going to be a little bit different because we have a right and a left going in one direction and then the other. So, think about it this way. I can use a left smile and I can use a right frown at the same time. But what I cannot do is have a left smile and a left frown. Okay? Now, R is the same letter that starts red. That's what I do. That's my own personal technique. You're free to do whatever you want, but this is the way that I think of it. Okay? When I select an object and I go into my Move tool, green is left, red is right. Okay? So what that means is that we're going to say going up is left smile and going right is right smile. Oh, excuse me, going X is right smile. Then going X negative is frown and Y negative is frown. Okay, so this is how we do this. The next set we will say character blends. We'll start with the positive. There we go. And just paste it in. This is going to be called L smile. So character blends L smile equals clamping it from 0 to 1 using, now we're not using the open close control anymore, we're using the smile frown control. Translate Y. Okay, that's good. So I'll copy all of that, paste it down, and what I'm going to do is R smile is X. So now we have L smile, R smile, smile and frown controller. One's going in Y. How do I know it's Y? Because it's the left, and the X is the red. So we hit enter, and look at that. I made 2 of them. Oh, hold on, something happened. Ah, okay. I just figured out what the problem was. When I duplicated this particular curve, of course, you get the number, added to it, but inside the group, you don't. And so when I wrote a script that said this particular object is doing something, it was looking around and it saw that these other curves also have that name. So I'm just going to grab these, do a quick rename, and call them common, just so that there's something else. So that when I bring back my expression, what I was writing was correct, and I hit edit. Notice that we don't have that error anymore, and if I open up my BlendShapes, L smile is taken care of. So that was the only problem. It was because I had 2 objects with the same name in the scene. So I can grab this entire thing, copy, and paste it, and this is going to be R smile going along the X direction. Hit edit. Sure enough, turn purple. We're good to go. So now we need the negative one, so we'll go ahead and just jump down, make a new one, and instead of smile, it's going to be called frown. And then instead of clamping from 0 to 1, it'll be -1 and 0. the smile frown controller is still going to be the same, and it is the left, so we know it has to be translate y times -1. Hit enter. There we go, we got that one. I can copy this entire thing, and this time all we have to do is change the X and then change the R. So we can hit edit again, and now we have another one. So if I grab the smile and the frown control, we'll just pull this over here. See how this works. So up is left smile, down would be left frown. I haven't done anything with that yet. And X in the right direction is the other side. Now, of course, if I go and take it in the middle, now I have a full smile. And if I go down, I'm going to have a full frown. Okay? All right, so that's what we want to do. And then lastly, the brows. Brows are going to basically be the same thing as the smile, so we can and this controller is called just Browse Control. So I can grab a copy of one of these. We'll just call this Character Blends L. We have to make sure that we find the right one. L eyebrows up. That's going to be the name. So we have Character Blends L eyebrows up, and we will say clamping it using the one called Browse Control, and L means we're using Y, and then up is a positive thing, so we're going from 0 to 1. So I can hit edit. Sure enough, turn purple. We're good to go. I can highlight the entire thing, hit enter. I'll change this over to right side, and then this to X. Hit edit, turn purple again. We're doing good. So now I need to turn this into the -1, so I'll just copy, go down one line. I know it's going to be times -1, and I also know that it's going to be from -1, because that's the lowest number, to 0. And then instead of left eyebrows up, it's going to be left eyebrows DWN. So I can hit enter, turn purple, doing good. Keep an eye on that, because if you just start typing all of this, there's no guarantee. You may come up with a little issue that you're not really expecting. And then R, hit edit, and now what we have is a character that has the full eyebrows control. So we can zoom in a little bit and take a look. And I'll just turn on wireframe so we can see what the head is doing. So up is one eyebrow, all the way to the side is both eyebrows. Down would be never turned it on. There we go. There it is. And then both gives you the scowl, and then both up. So opposites, we have the full range of motion, but then if we go in the other direction, we have this, which is great, because now we can really make some really fun, silly faces. And it's working nice and smooth, so we know we're doing all right. Okay, so I would grab all of these, copy, open up that text document, highlight over all of it, and just paste. So I would continue updating it so that all of these phrases work just fine. Okay, so I would save it inside of my project folder. That would probably be the best place to put it, because if anything does go wrong, all you have to do is copy this entire thing, paste it right back in, hit edit. Next thing you know, the entire BlendShape control set comes back. Now, let's say that you've gone through and every single one of these character heads now has a corresponding controller, the last step is to just take this head, shift and select the very last link, go to deformers, make a blend shape, grab your master head and turn it on. That's it. Because now what's going to happen is that it's going to work on both of the characters. And remember, the reason that we're doing this is because if I ever have to get rid of this character, I would simply come over to the Final Connect and turn it off so that it goes back to default. And if I ever have to delete my history, or if I have to detach my skin, which of course usually means I have to delete my history, all I have to do is this last link, because all of these controllers are still here, still working, still doing what they're supposed to do. Grab this, grab that, make a blend shape, and turn it back on. So I've already talked to students who, once they realized the importance of that last little link, they've come back and told me that it really did save them. There are going to be times when, especially when you're first starting out and first learning this, but then even when you're just doing things that are really complicated or complex, it's just going to become the situation where you might have to do that, and you will be so happy that you have that last little final connection node. And you will want to open up a wormhole and go back in time and give yourself a big sloppy kiss because you were smart enough to do it early on. Okay? All right, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I know we've been talking for a good long while. Hopefully this process will start to make more sense as you practice a little bit more. Remember that this head is very simple. And it's simple for a reason. We wanted to give you something that that works without a lot of issues. When you start making your own character, it's very probable, and in most cases I would even recommend it, that this head probably needs to be a little bit more detailed. We don't have a whole lot of information for the eyelids right now. You might need to increase the number of subdivisions or the number of edge loops inside of this, just for that reason. But one way or another, it just takes time. So good luck and enjoy.